Mr. Fussy Pants?
The film begins with Tom wearing a parachute, jumping from an airplane and landing on one of the tallest skyscrapers in New York, which is still under construction and belongs to Tom. In a subsequent interview, he informs the media that the tallest structure in North America would be completed in a month. The reporter then questions him about a competitor called Paragon, but Tom doesn't respond. He then has a meeting in his office and becomes irate with his boss Ian and every other employee of the company, asking them to explain how they can compare my tower to Paragon. Ian then has a conversation with Tom's oldest son, David. There is still some building remaining on Paragon, he informs him, and they won't finish their tower until after Tom's tower, which will be higher than Tom's. Tom then presents his son with a parachute and a message that reads, "This is for everyone when you become a proper man." When Tom returns home, he is met by his wife, Laura, who is furious with him for not returning the calls. Then she informs him that you need to get his daughter Rebecca a beautiful present for her birthday, which is tomorrow. Tom has been throwing parties for 7 years, and they attend one of them. Tom loves his family more than money, according to Lara's humorous speech. The following day, Rebecca and Tom visit the park. Rebecca informs him that her birthday present would be a kitten. After that, Tom asks his staff members at his office for recommendations on what Rebecca should receive as a gift. Ian advises her to obtain her desired outcome. Tom now claims that his daughter wants a cat, even though I'm not a cat person. Madison, Tom's ex-wife, and her daughter Nicole arrive at Lara's house for Rebecca's birthday. Madison has a son named David. He is then informed by Laura Madison that Tom is extremely irresponsible. His work is more important to him than his daughter's birthday, and he hasn't returned home yet. Madison then hands him the business card of a divorced lawyer, telling him to get in touch with him if he ever needs it again. However, in Rebecca's room, Nicole was playing with him. "Your dad doesn't love you," Nicole teases him, "and he has more important stuff to accomplish than celebrate your birthday." Hearing this makes Rebecca very upset, but she chooses not to show Nicole. Tom then attends his workplace meeting and then proceeds to a pet store. Their cats were everywhere. Felix Tom is then introduced to the shop owner. Felix discovers after speaking with him that he dislikes cats. Cats, not the owner cat, choose their owners, he continues. When Tom sees the news at the same store, he learns that his tower will be the second highest tower, for the reason that Paragon is the first number. Felix then hands Tom a plate that reads Fuzzy Pants and a kitty box. Tom now receives a call from an office worker as he is leaving, but Felix urges him that he should attend his daughter's birthday celebration instead of heading to the office right now. However, Tom returns to the office, disregarding his advice. At the birthday celebration, however, Rebecca is seen, and she also mentions saving a slice of cake for Tom. However, while they mock her, all of the medications advise her to store the cake in the refrigerator close to the slices from the previous year. However, Tom goes to his office's rooftop instead. There, he meets Ian and a cat was with him. On the tower's roof, Ian recommends that we construct a 60-foot signal tower. This will make our tower higher than Paragon's. However, Tom becomes anxious and begins reprimanding Ian right away. He goes on to state that because of your poor advice, I was late for your daughter's birthday celebration. Tom is furious and fires Ian from his position. Then, however, the tower's roof is struck by electricity. As a result, Tom tumbles and hangs with the tower. When he asks Ian for assistance, Ian refuses, in order for Tom to pass away without anyone knowing that he had fired Ian. Now, Tom begins to tumble as his hand fractures. He enters the building with a pipe, though, which is fortunate. But all of this had left him unconscious. He notices the paramedics around as he finally comes to. It dawns on him then that his soul had entered the cat's body. Initially, he believes it is all a dream. He eventually learns, however, that this is the case. The hospital's doctors then declare him to be in a coma. However, Tom was trying to convey to him that he was imprisoned here while he was confined in the cat's body. Following this, Laura emerges from the cat. That is Tom. Ian now approaches him and informs him that although I didn't succeed in saving Tom, I still wanted to help him. Tom becomes enraged upon learning of this and accuses him of being unfaithful. Felix then appears at the hospital. Afterward, he approaches Tom and strikes up a conversation. Due of Felix's ability to interact with cats, "You will be stuck in this cat as long as your body is in a coma," he informs him. Following this, Laura brings Rebecca and the cat home. Now, Tom begins writing a letter as soon as he gets home, for the purpose of telling his family that he is stuck in a cat house. He couldn't, however, pick up the pen. Next, he tries to tell him via the tablet, but he can't get it to turn on. Then he shows up in Laura's room with some cash and his driver's license, that he may identify me as Tom to her. Laura, however, shuts the door, assuming the cat is feeling playful. Tom could no longer comprehend what he needed to accomplish. Then he heads to his office and pours himself an ashtray of his favorite whiskey. Then, when intoxicated, he passes gas on the carpet and falls asleep. After that, Laura offers him cat food and wakes him up. Tom, however, doesn't eat this dish because he didn't enjoy it. After that, Laura carries him and begins to love him. Then, at night, Tom adds several letters and attempts to explain to Laura that I'm not a cat. He is told to consume cat food by Laura, who believes that she is hungry. Tom then heads to the kitchen to try to consume some munchies. Following this, David questions Laura about the cat when he gets home. Laura informs him that because the cat is an alcoholic, she doesn't consume any food. He is asked to provide some office documents by David. Madison and Nicole, who also had 2 puppies, then arrive at their home, and the puppies immediately begin to chase after Tom. However, Nicole uses the steps to restrain them. Tom learns later that Laura is telling Madison to go into a relationship with Josh if she doesn't feel comfortable about Tom. Tom now becomes irate and urinates in his bag as soon as he learns of this. He then leaves the house in a terrible state the following day and begs Laura to call Felix. By contrast, David sat at the hospital with his father's body. He now returns to the office following his hospital stay and informs the board during a meeting that he has a plan to surpass Paragon's height. However, Ein immediately tells me that your notion is flawed. There, he was acting as though he was the office manager. Then Felix returns home. He informs him that I want to spend some time talking to the cat by myself. Felix then addresses Tom, telling him to start acting like a good cat. Laura becomes bewildered, however, when she witnesses Felix conversing with the cat. Felix warns Tom, "I'll take you back to the pet store if you cause any trouble again." Tom then begins acting like a good cat. He begins playing with his daughter after eating cat food. Currently, he was occasionally bathing and urinating in the litter box. Then Laura receives a call from Josh asking to meet up. At this point, Tom leaps from the building and hides in Laura's vehicle. However, David discovers that Ein has altered the company's policies when he visits the workplace. He also enters into agreements with various illicit businesses. Ein informs him that although I will offer him a sizable sum of money, he must remain silent in exchange. But after learning that Ein is purely motivated by money, David becomes upset with him. He also doesn't give a damn about the company's standing. After they meet, Laura says, "Josh, I want to break up with you." She then begins to wonder how she got here after noticing the cat there. Josh asks her, "What made you decide against it?" "Tom, you were going to abandon him." Laura now informs him, "This cat keeps reminding me of Tom. I can't leave Tom for that reason." After then, Laura receives a call from the hospital informing her that Tom's condition is deteriorating. Tom and Rebecca were sitting at home after this, and Rebecca was viewing an old film of her dancing with her father. Rebecca becomes upset and breaks down in tears. Tom then begins to play with her in an attempt to cheer her up. Following this, Tom learns that Nicole took a photo of Rebecca while she was in tears, which she intended to share on social media with the statement, "Rebecca is crying." The phone is then taken from her by Tom and handed to Rebecca. Rebecca throws her phone in the toilet after becoming enraged at Nicole. Following this, Tom assists Rebecca with her homework. Then he makes the decision that he will be the world's greatest cat if he must live as one. However, Rebecca begins to question the cat. Subsequently, One day Tom noticed Rebecca looking up the question, "Can her father's soul come inside a cat?" on her tablet. After they meet, he informs David Laura that the mirror is detrimental to our business. In addition to wanting to sell the tower, he has some evil motives. A plot is also taking place at the workplace when he is taking the boards and his father's will. Currently, he is carrying a box of paperwork to the office. Additionally, Tom hides in this box so that he can accompany him to the office. He then proceeds there and begins searching for the document on which he had written his will. He had stated that David would then make all of the company's choices in that document. Then he learns that the paper he had destroyed has been turned over to an office worker. At this point, Tom removes every fragment of paper from the shredder box. Upon noticing the documents, David collects and peruses them. He then receives certain documents at home from his father, which state that David is entitled to all managerial rights of the business. This is followed by the mirror visiting Laura's home and asking her why she is unable to attend the tower's inauguration ceremony. It's time to move on from Tom and begin a new chapter in your life. The mirror then requests his consent so that he can instruct the medical staff to switch off the hospital's equipment, after which it dies. However, Laura is furious with him after learning this. Additionally, Tom was listening to all of this nearby when he jumped on the mirror and began ripping his clothes. Laura tells the mirror to conceal Tom's face after placing him in the box. When the mirror enters the workplace, it reveals that David is holding meetings with every employee in the business. The mirror then appears and begins disparaging David before ignoring him. David was now considering the possibility that the mirror would have sold this tower by the time he presented the truth about it to everyone. However, Felix informs Rebecca that this cat is the soul of your father Tom when she visits the pet store. In the hospital, Rebecca reveals to her mother that her cat is actually Tom. When Laura hears this, she removes him from the room. Conversely, David expressed his regret to his father for not being able to salvage their business. Tom was in the same room as David, and after hearing David's words, he feels like he's going to kill himself. Then Tom begins to pursue him. Going to the top floor, David enters the tower. Behind him was Tom, too. Following this, we notice in the news that David is standing on the tower's roof. Also, Tom leaps behind David as soon as he leaps from there. Subsequently, Tom notices that David is donning the same parachute that he gave him. David then releases his parachute. Then, we learn that David was merely pulling a ruse for the tower's opening ceremony and wasn't actually killing himself. In contrast, Tom awakens in the hospital as soon as the cat hits the floor. Laura was with him, as was her kid. When they first meet him, they are overjoyed. According to Will's statement in the news, "I may make all of the decisions for this company in accordance with my father's wishes. In addition, I own half of this tower." Ein is then called there by David, who dismisses him from his position. David then says, "Welcome back, Dad," while glancing at the camera.